Folks, I'm One Proper Variant, and today we're going to be jumping into Dev Diary number 66 for Victoria 3. This one is about patch 1.1, is written by Paul Dupre, and this is obviously part 2. This one is largely about extraction sites for and production methods for rubber and oil that gets rebalanced, and then they took another look at that and see how it goes. So this will be in 1.1. 1.1, if we consult this post-release plan right here, is largely going to be focusing on others, so bug fixing and so on. Diplomacy and warfare is something that apparently they're going to be focusing on in 1.2. Historical immersion is something that I hope they're going to have in 1.1. I say this because I read on the Discord, on the Victoria 3 Discord, I read that they had a United States of America branch where they already were running some tests so that the Civil War happens in a better fashion, so that, for example, the Manifest Destiny actually takes place, so that they might even take the Oregon Treaty and might even take Alaska, that sort of stuff. And I hope that that is coming in 1.1 because it is so vital. I very specifically pointed this out in my review as well, right? Where I said that I've never seen the US go all the way to the west. I've never seen Germany form, although this has gotten a lot better, although the AI does it very suboptimally, but be that as it may. I've never seen Japan restore itself, all that sort of thing. I've never seen France collapse, and if you play the game right now, then you will know France does not collapse. But yeah, where I'm coming from here is ultimately that I'm really looking forward to the bug fixes, obviously. I've already, in the last Dev Diary, I think, talked a lot about how I'm not quite happy with the UX changes that are currently being made to, for example, the pop window in 1.1, although it is, of course, a step up. The historical immersion stuff is very important to me personally. Yes, we should talk about warfare and diplomacy rebalancing, about more mechanics, about more chances, more opportunities that you can take there, but on a fundamental level, if the world just doesn't do anything, if it's too timid, then that is just gonna have a massive ripple effect. If the United States of America never take the West, then we're looking at a situation where they're just never going to grow into any sort of powerhouse. But obviously, to balance the Atlantic, I guess, balance of power, you need somebody that is quite impactful in the late game. Either way, let's take an actual look at the Dev Diary right here. Greetings, my fellow Victorians. Paul here to talk about some of the things I've been doing for patch 1.1. As we said in previous Dev Diaries, this patch 1.1 is going to primarily focus on game polish, bug fixing, balancing, AI improvements, and UI/UX work. While the next major free patch, 1.2, is going to be more focused towards making progress on the plans that we've outlined in our post-release plans DD, by iterating on systems like warfare and diplomacy. Hotfix 1.0.6 should be out for you all, with performance improvements and some bug fixes in the meantime. It is much better than 1.0.5. I really wish that had been the original 1.0.5, but be that as it may, 1.0.6 definitely also actually works for older save games. It consolidates the pops in a way that then enhances performance. I've seen this with some of the disaster saves that I'm playing. But yeah, no, I think when it comes to 1.1, so this is coming in Q4, so before the year's over, then 1.2, hopefully Q1, right? We're looking at patches that work or will attempt to bring in the polish that the game should have at this very moment. Let's hope that it actually works out. It's very difficult sometimes to make changes and have it not break things further because everything here is so interconnected. But yeah, be that as it may. What have I been doing? Balance work, alongside bug fixing, and assisting with some UI work and bettering of the player experience. I'm new to the design team, and during my onboarding, I've been able to utilize all of my special talents. I love spreadsheets and data, so I've been working on building profitability, production methods, and resource availability. In patch 1.1, two large changes I've made are to oil and rubber, and I've got some cool resource maps to show you the changes. So basically, those are changes that you're making that will then fundamentally, and this is why it's so important to understand that this is actually, despite it being a fairly short Dev Diary, it's actually a pretty big thing to do here. We're looking at a situation where it basically, they're trying to rebalance the entire mid and late game economy with this. Now, if you've played this game enough, then you will know that this isn't the only issue that you face in the mid and late game. This is just also down to the AI just not developing provinces enough. But it's true, you know, if you spread these resources out, you make it more possible to maintain a global market situation, even if the AI is competent, if you, for example, play with Unbeal's AI mod, in the hope that that is pronounced that way. Either way, this is what Paul has been doing. Paul used to be QA, I want to say QA lead actually, I'm not entirely sure there, but used to be QA, now on the design team. And I'm very happy for that personally. I gotta tell you this, I had a conversation with Aaron, and Aaron is UX, and Paul, and they are both very, very actively looking towards UX. And I know that they're not alone, there's obviously more involved there, but where I'm coming from there is that the woes that I, for example, brought up in the last Dev Diary video that I have with the interface, or the woes that I brought up just recently on Twitter, when it comes to what is going on with the current situation rider, when it comes to those, I'm very confident that they share, or rather understand and want to address these issues, right? And that is something that can be quite difficult. I've talked to many devs over the years, and sometimes it's not that easy to like break out of the frame of, okay, this is the way it is and it ought to be this way and it's gonna stay this way. Sometimes you just gotta like do some stuff. I hope that they're gonna, you know, do some good work when it comes to the UX UI, because this is one of the biggest issues. We're gonna have a video up not too long in the future when it comes to Japan, where there are just some issues of workforce ratio, for example, where it comes to some issues of, okay, what is going on here in relation to mortality, and that sort of stuff just isn't working right in the UX UI, making it so that a player then that doesn't know this makes very bad decisions. Big topic, but let's just focus on the oil issue right here. So this is oil right now, 1.0.6. These were made with Licarius's tool. Pretty neat tool. Seems to make it so that basically it plops down whatever values you have in your files onto the map. Very cool. You see it is quite limited here. In general, Africa, of course, also quite limited resources. You know, the entire area right here in Indonesia as well, and they changed that around quite a bit. In the version of the game that you're all currently playing, these are the oil reserves that are discoverable in-game. They're mostly the historical oil fields that were cultivated over the current knowledge of where oil is and has been accessible, even if we did not find out about it until later than 1936. As you have no doubt noticed in your later games, oil is a scarce resource and limits the progress of later game industrialization. But we want oil to be an important late game resource. Its current bottleneck as an available resource is a little too harsh to the player's experience, so we've expanded the discoverable oil fields in-game. Again, I think it's not a bad move. Fundamentally, it's not a bad move to just expand the oil fields, but I also think you really need to take care of basically just make the AI exploit them much more often. If this stuff got more exploited, if Russia exploited this more, we would be looking at a totally different situation in any given game. But adding more just makes it more likely that you will have a global oil market if you compare it to this new situation. Just look at this. As long as you grab anything right there in the Sahara, South Africa is always available right there. There's so much more now in South Africa, South America, I mean, sorry. And then, of course, everything going on in the United States and Canada as well as Mexico, even more in China now and India as well. These are good steps. These are steps that I think should make things much more reasonably active. But I do want to highlight that I also really just want the AI to actually use oil, to use rubber, right? Because I think that is a big part. I don't think the AI in Victoria 3 should play quite as advanced as Unreal's AI mod. Because I think that in the end will put you into a non-scarcity situation. Because they're just all growing so heftily that there's not really a plus or a negative that you can exploit via market differences, via trade routes, via invasions, that sort of stuff. I think it should be somewhere in between. Right now, obviously, is not enough, the way they exploit things, the way they develop their economy. I would like a significant push there, and obviously, this makes it easier for the AI, but the AI itself needs to learn. This, sadly, there are no words on this in this dev diary when it comes to this, but I assume that they're working on that as well, because it was, after all, as well mentioned right here. Tweak the late game economy and the AI's ability to develop key resources. There it is. I spent a few days going through various feedback threads on the Discords and forums, alongside as many natural resource distribution maps, so I could give a better estimate, there you go, of the world's oil supply and help make the game representative of that. As of now, we've doubled the world's potential oil fields to give rise to a more plentiful supply in the world by both player and AI actions. So yeah, what exactly the impact of this will be, we will have to see, but fundamentally I think it should make it easier for the AI to actually create a market that can then be exploited by various nations so that they can actually develop their economy. Again, right now, way underwhelming. Now, I don't actually know anything about the authenticity of this, but Paul does address this here. I know some of you might be asking, why did we not just increase the production of oil methods and leave the historical oil fields in place? Why have you included specific oil fields that were not tapped until, let's say, for example, 1950? Those fields represent a usage of either oil sands or some various substrate that would have not been accessible at the time. There are also some valid questions. I will no doubt go into more detail in the thread about choices made, but some quick answers. Oil production methods are already incredibly profitable, and buffing them further would help but probably not fully solve the problem. The gating of oil fields to only historically extracted area is always tricky. If Russia and the United States collapse in-game, 50% plus of the world's oil supply is locked behind the regression and the world suffers. You want to have historical credibility, but also give players multiple avenues to pursue. Yeah, I don't know about this, honestly. This is, in my opinion, the weakest argument for this. I have no issue with this. Sure, it might be a bit advanced, but, you know, hey, these sort of games, they stretch what is available in the name of gameplay compared to historicity. But the way I look at this is like, it is incredibly attractive if the United States of America, if Russia, for example, goes isolationist. That is a crazy move against the world economy, because all this oil would be locked away. Making it less impactful, I don't know whether I'm personally happy with this. I will admit, though, that many of the numbers that were added here, all these fives, for example, they shouldn't be so impactful that they alone can carry a world economy that is now cut off from this massive Russian oil usage, right? But yeah, either way, I always think that if there is a potential where you can have a massive impact on the world economy, on the world setup, via, you know, just for example, denying resources, then that is actually kind of cool. That's kind of interesting. I would like to pursue that further. Either way, we don't exactly leave a track record of this field would have been accessible in 1880, etc. in our history books when we discover new resources, so best guesstimates have to be used, and a balance between historical and semi-balanced gameplay has to be found. I get that. I do understand this one. We're by no means done with oil. This is my first step in their balancing, and it's been sent off to QA to run tests and gather feedback. I really hope that this is a good session of feedback gathering here. I have got plenty of possibilities to look into, but I want to make iterative changes instead of altering many things at once and not seeing the full impact. Things I'm looking into for the future include gating some oil reserve potential behind tech to make it where deposits that were not found until more modern days are harder for the player to get to, but still possible. I would love this. I would absolutely love this. I think the tech tree in the game right now in general is too short. I think if you play the game in a way where you go very high literacy, very high universities, very high industrialization, which is basically, I think, what most new to fairly experienced players go for. There's not much roleplay or consideration there commonly. If you play that way, you will out-tech yourself way too fast. You will tech ahead way too fast as well. If you make it a bit larger, a bit longer, right? I got nothing against it. I think that's a great idea. If oil supply is still too short, looking into adding more variation of production methods of balancing of input and output of those factories. Fair enough. Giving the whale oil industry a bit more of a kick into gear in the early stages of the game. See, these balance changes here are not easy. You're just changing a single resource, and with that change the entire trajectory that your world could take. All of a sudden it is much more accessible to get oil and to do something with it. What does that mean? Is it good? Is it bad? Yeah, they have to find the solutions there. I'll be honest with you, I think this is a nice insight here in how difficult the project vetting, the project QA is, but I also think that we have to expect this to be done. This is very important. 1.0, you know, I think was a bit behind on certain issues, again, much like I said in my review. And these are the things that need to be tested much more thoroughly, and this sounds like they're now doing it. Very happy to see that. Keep your feedback on the forums and Discord coming. I might not read and answer them right away, but I do collate them for future reference, and they have been incredibly helpful in my efforts. And now onto the world's rubber supply, which I've also adjusted for patch 1.1. This is the current rubber, and this is the future rubber. You already see there is no difference whatsoever. While not as much of a bottleneck as the world oil supply, rubber is found to not be plentiful enough to meet world demand at current. And as we make the AI better at extracting and utilizing resources in-game, again, they're actually making the AI do that, I'm very happy to see that, we no doubt have to increase the rubber supply available to the world. And so, here are the changes. None. Your eyes aren't deceiving you. The two maps are the same. And this is not a mistake. The changes to rubber have been focused on its vertical margins as opposed to the horizontal margins. While I could have upped the world supply of rubber, looking at the later game saves, I found it was population issues, which were preventing the resource from meeting demands, etc. So, what I did instead was add a new PM to rubber plantations, giving them an automatic irrigation system, like that of the other plantations this building shares relation to in name only, to symbolize later efforts to modernize plantations and not be fully rainfall dependent. This would help increase the productivity of buildings already in the game. So all of these are the same. You can build 30 levels, 52 levels, it's the same as we already have it, but these levels will now have more value in the late game, in the late mid game, as you can actually improve it via automatic irrigation. You can see it right here. Produces twice the rubber per level, it seems. Uses engines, fair enough, and uses machinists and farmers, so you need a fairly educated population in these areas, but not too many. After all, this is actually, you know, hey, it's just 500 machinists. All in all, this actually gets rid of only 100 workers, so it's not even like a cost-saving measure. Items I'm looking into for the future include adding more rubber potential to the world if this PM is not enough, potential synthetic rubber in the late game, state traits for the specific areas of the world best suited to its cultivation to help throughput. I would really like this. I think that would be kind of cool, getting a degree of autarky here. But yeah, no, these changes obviously, yeah, they want to kickstart this economy. They are aware of the mid-game, late-game issues, and they need to improve the AI now and then make it easier for the AI to actually really, you know, sort of excel based on the rubber and the oil that is in the world. These two changes, resource changes, have been put into 1.1 among other things, and are currently being vetted for balance and functionality by the QA team. Bless him, hope they succeed. I look forward to hearing your thoughts as well, but remember that all numbers are currently work in progress. If you have thoughts and opinions and can find me a source backing up your claims, please feel free to put them in the thread or the Discord. What am I doing while this is being vetted? Why, I am breaking ground into future balance changes in 1.2. As stated elsewhere on these forums, I am looking into the arable land balance of the game, making changes to them. Since these changes have the potential to upend the world economy, I'm getting this branch settled early, so we have as much time on our end to iterate on its balance. I will also take feedback from players upon 1.1's upcoming release, then look into tweaking other resources balance and such. There are always a few things to tweak. I like this paragraph, I think, the most out of the entire dev diary. Hear me out here. Every dev team has different styles, different project approaches. Obviously, there's a general sort of a base idea, base plan that they follow. There are certain sections of, you know, a dev team that need to always be present. Nobody is without programmers, without QA. But for example, when it comes to content designers, there are certain splits that certain teams make. When you compare, for example, CK3 and Victoria 3, there are different positions, different team structures. When we look at Stellaris, and I love Stellaris for this because it gives us such a great thing to look forward to. We are talking about a full proper team split, right? Where some people are custodians, they say we look back, we try to fix, we try to analyze, we try to make changes to already existing content for the better, and then you have the team that just works on future content. This is a very unique Stellaris structure that has been created over the years after Stellaris underwent a lot of changes, a lot of DLC, and with that needed some revisitation. I think we're already seeing the first steps here for Victoria 3 when it comes to this sort of customization of the team plan of Victoria 3. Maybe this is already a very old step that they've taken, but this right here fundamentally understands that when it comes to designing future patches to 1.2 and so on, you need to start with a basic balance in Victoria 3 more than in any other game. If you change a building's income or a building's cost in CK3, you aren't changing something that is going to ruin gameplay in any meaningful way. It doesn't matter. Maybe it makes it viable, less viable, optimal, suboptimal, who cares? It doesn't change the gameplay as a whole. Now in Victoria 3 that is different. Change rubber, change oil, change what a building does, change the arable land, and you might have permanent famines, you might have infinite wealth, right? These are the changes that need to be made first, and then you can set other stuff on top. I like seeing this paragraph right here. This sounds to me as if they're entering the stage where they're customizing the team in a way that actually makes sense for what this project is. So either way, let's hope that rubber and oil are changed together with the AI actually exploiting them in a way that makes the mid and late game for the AI much more competitive. In CK3, they did competitive changes, and they aren't bad in any way whatsoever. But I was not too, interested in them, because I don't think that is too relevant for CK3. I think for Victoria 3 it is incredibly relevant, because the world economy as a whole depends on it. Whether the King of Hungary is a very strong guy because the AI is good or bad doesn't really matter to my enjoyment of CK3. But if Austria doesn't really exploit any of their resources, if Russia doesn't send me their oil or their grain, if nobody gets rubber, that impacts everything. So yeah, this is a big topic. Let's hope that it works out. 1.1 is planned to release before the end of the year, and it's already November, so it's not that far away in the grand scheme of things. Next week we will talk about some more of the changes in that patch. Who knows what that is? Probably something from this list. But yeah, in my opinion, these are not bad changes. I am much more eager to see the team structure development, right? Paul Dupre himself changed position, is now in a different position, is working in a different fashion than what, of course, was his task previously. And I hope that they are coming to a point where they are fully settling in when it comes to managing this. When we look at Stellaris, for example, it took them so long. They rebalanced so many things. Then we had the huge rework when it came to the hyperlane usage and such, right? That team underwent so many different approaches, I think. It's really neat to see what they have really ultimately come out with. But yeah, this here is a big topic. I hope that the changes that were discussed here, plus the changes to the AI, plus the changes to the approach when it comes to the team, that will bear fruit. Either way, I personally am quite happy actually with 1.0.6 for the moment. Obviously, there's many issues, don't get me wrong here. I read just earlier, last night actually, that apparently the change regime war goal isn't broken, it just works in a way that isn't communicated and that I had no idea about, so what do you want me to say, right? Either way, this is it for today, this is it for the moment right here. Was there anything else? I just want to say CK3, the series will make a very, very soon comeback. It's just that I was busier than I thought today in particular as well. But yeah, that is coming. Don't worry about it, okay? We are also going to do some more disaster saves, of course, and going to focus on the future of Victoria 3 as a whole. That's it from me, and I will see you later, alligator.